Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth. This is the John Campea Show. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an honor and a privilege to have you guys joining me here today, as it is every day, as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff like that. Listen, we got a whole bunch of stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Agent Coulson coming back. We got a little bit of stuff about Ready Player One to talk about, a whole bunch of stuff in the movie news feed. But before we get going with all of that, let's go right off the top. It was just announced this morning that Fox has made some major shifting in their release schedule. X-Men, The Dark Phoenix has been pushed back. New Mutants has once again been pushed back. The Queen biopic Bohemian Rhapsody has been moved up to November 2nd, so that's coming a little bit earlier. But the X franchise films have been pushed back. Let's put this into a little bit of context, shall we? This year, 2018, was supposed to be a massive year for Fox comic book movie films. We had Deadpool 2, we had X-Men Dark Phoenix, and we had New Mutants. Now, a few months ago, we found out that New Mutants was being pushed into 2019, so that just left X-Men and Deadpool, and now X-Men has been bumped off. And what the hell is going on with New Mutants? I just gotta ask, what the hell is going on with New Mutants? Because let's look at this in context. Dark Phoenix originally was supposed to be released in November 2nd. Okay, Fox wanted to use that date now for Bohemian Rhapsody. They want to move it up. Okay, so they bump Dark Phoenix off that November 2nd date, and they move it like 3 months to February 14th. That's not such a big deal. Bumping it 3 months is cool, especially if they wanted to replace the film they had in that one date with another one. For whatever reason, they feel like they needed to move Bohemian Rhapsody. Fine, they moved that up. But the question marks that I have are regarding New Mutants. Because originally, New Mutants was supposed to come out like 2 weeks from now. Like 2 weeks from now is when New Mutants was supposed to come out. It was supposed to come out on April 13th, just a little over 2 weeks from now. So fine. We later find out it gets bumped to February 22nd. Okay, fine. They bumped it a whole bunch, nearly a year, and we theorized about this and that and the other thing, but ultimately we're like, okay, it's moved to February 22nd. Now they've moved it another 6 months to August 2nd, 2019. New Mutants has gone from April 13th, 2018 to August 2nd, 2019. That is 16 months. That's almost a year and a half. Now, I put on my most optimistic smile and face when they originally announced that big push all the way to February. I thought, well, you know what? February is a release date that's worked for them. Maybe they've wanted to do a few extra things with reshoots. They wanted some extra time. And the next best date, they didn't want to release it in October. They didn't want to release it in November. Next best date, February. Okay, fine. I put on my best smile about that and said, nothing's wrong. Everything's good. Now they push it another 6 months. I am left with no choice in the absence of any other explanation, because here's the thing. If the studio doesn't give us an explanation, then we're left to kind of theorize on our own. If the studio wants to stay tight-lipped and not say anything, then they're just leaving us to theorize on our own, okay? And now that you've pushed this thing back 16 months from its original release date, the second time you've bumped it, the second significant bump. It's not like you bumped it 3 months one time and then 8 months. You have now bumped this thing significantly twice. I am left as a fan, and you guys know I'm a huge fan of the Fox X universe. As a fan, I am left to assume, I have no other choice but to assume this film is a bloody mess. That's all I'm left to assume. You cannot push it significantly. Twice. Now this X-Men Dark Phoenix thing, that's a 3-month push. That's not all that significant. I'm not worried about that. Plus you can make an argument moving it into a February release date where they had such great success with Deadpool before. You can look at that and say, okay. But this is the second time they've made a significant delay on New Mutants. From April of 2018 to August of 2019. So I have no other choice as a fan until Fox decides to give us some kind of explanation to sit here and go, yeah, this film must be an unmitigated disaster of a car wreck. And they just don't, they must have so much work to do on this. Listen, I'm at this point, I'm not going to be surprised at all if next week we find out they just pull it off the schedule altogether. Like, seriously, like, get your act together. This is some DC shit here. Get your act together. Like, how did you feel that this movie was going to be ready for release in April of 2018, like 2 weeks from now? And then in a span of just a number of months, it's gone all the way back to like end of summer 2019. Get your act together. Who over there, were you incompetent when you set that April release date? Okay, okay, then were you incompetent when you moved it to the February 2000 release date? No. Are you incompetent now that you're pushing here? Like, seriously, get your shit together. Like, this is ridiculous. It's cool for things. Hey, we moved a release date a couple of weeks. We moved this back a month, blah, blah. That's fine. That's just shuffling the cards. Again, this is the second time that we've had a major significant push on this film. So again, I've gone from being really excited. Why the hell did you put out the trailer? Why the hell put out that trailer? Like, you got us excited about it, and now it's pushed 16 months. I mean, like, sometimes, I don't know what the hell these guys are doing, or what they're thinking, or where they dropped the ball, but they've dropped the ball. You can at least come out and tell the fans, say, look, upon reviewing our footage, we've had some new ideas and some fresh ideas that we think would improve the film, and instead of putting out what we've got, we want to make it the best we can. Like, come out and say something like that. Like, because this is just ridiculous. So you get people like me holding my oversized Italian penis in my hand. Anyway, going, oh no, guys, everything's fine with X-Men. Everything's fine with New Mutants. And then you push it again and you make those of us who defend the X universe look stupid. So thank you very much. I do a good enough job on my own making myself look stupid. Thank you very much. I hate it when somebody gives me a little bit of a hand. And when I come out and defend moving New Mutants the one time, and I defend it and I defend it, say everything's fine, don't worry about blah, 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 and then you push it another 6 months again, you make those people like me, the idiots and the suckers like me, who spent our time defending you, look even more dumb when you don't even put out an official explanation as to why you're doing it. So I don't know, maybe I'm getting too worked up about this. That's totally possible. It's been known to happen from time to time. And maybe they will come out with some kind of explanation later. But when you announce this push, considering it's the second major push, at least give us an explanation. At least tell us why. You know, you got us as fans to get invested by dropping that trailer. You push it off like 8 months. Now you push it off another 6 months. I mean, what the hell's going on? Anyway. So that's just my little rant and rave on that. On the positive side, it looks like they've got some faith in this Bohemian Rhapsody, moving it up a little bit. And again, not a big deal about the X-Men Dark Phoenix move. It's just a couple of months, and they're putting it into a release date that they've had some success with their X-Men universe with Deadpool a couple of years ago. So that may not be a bad thing at all. But again, this New Mutant situation just has me like scratching my head. Anyway. With that out of the way, before we get into our main topics, guys, there's a whole bunch of other things going on in the world of movie news. And if you watch the John Campea Show, I want to make sure you're caught up to date on all of it, even if they're topics that we don't have time to go into in depth. So this is a little segment that we call the Movie News Feed. First up, Stranger Things has easily been one of the biggest pop culture hits in the last couple of years, and in Season 2, we saw the further evolution in the Steve Harrington character. First as a romantic interest for Nancy, and then as an almost father figure to the Dustin character. According to executive producer Sean Levy, in Season 3, we're going to see more of this Dad Steve. He said the following: "We'll definitely get to see some more of Steve Harrington in Season 3, and I'll just say that we won't be abandoning the Dad Steve magic. I don't want to say much more, but I literally feel that we were walking along and we stumbled into a gold mine with Dad Steve." Personally, I love the chemistry between Dustin and Steve, and I like the direction they seem to be going with this. Next up, the Harry Potter magic seems to be powerful whether on the big screen or on the live stage. The live stage production of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child has just debuted on Broadway and is already seeing impressive results. According to Variety, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child was the largest grossing play of the week by far, ringing in $1.5 million for 6 preview shows, which, if those per performance numbers keep up, would make for a $2 million week in an 8-performance frame. Last week, the 2-part sequel to the Harry Potter books played to capacity crowds and racked up its $1.5 million, even with 300 tickets of the week's inventory priced at under $40. You know there's going to be a Harry Potter 9 at some point, right? Next up, according to reports, the amazingly talented and incredibly beautiful Naomi Watts is apparently in negotiations to join the upcoming action film Boss Level. Watts would be joining the likes of Mel Gibson and Frank Grillo. Boss Level is described as a Groundhog Day-style action thriller to be written and directed by Joe Carnahan, who has also directed such films as The Grey and Smokin' Aces. The film follows a retired Special Forces vet named Roy, played by Frank Grillo, forced to relive his death in a never-ending loop. Roy has to figure out who is responsible and stop them in order to stop his endless suffering. Groundhog Day, yes, but to me it sounds even more like the recent hit horror film Happy Death Day. Next, if you've ever wondered where in the world is Carmen Sandiego, the answer is now Netflix. According to a report on Deadline, Carmen Sandiego is being turned into a live-action film for Netflix, and the company has already attached Jane the Virgin star Gina Rodriguez to the lead role in the film. This will be an extension of the brand, as Netflix already announced a new Carmen Sandiego animated series for 2019, with Gina Rodriguez also voicing the title character in the animated version. The movie will be a standalone Carmen adventure that will embrace the beloved 90s property. No writer or director is yet attached to the movie. I've never watched Jane the Virgin, but I did enjoy Rodriguez in both Deepwater Horizon and Annihilation. Let's see if she can be one of those few actresses to make that difficult transition from TV star to legit movie star. Next up, Blumhouse has just picked up the Kevin Bacon project You Should Have Left that Jason Blum and Kevin Bacon will produce and Bacon will star in. The film is based on a 2017 novel of the same name and tells of a screenwriter who holes up in a remote house in the Alps with his wife and daughter so he can work on a sequel to his big hit. However, in shades of The Shining, the classic Stephen King novel that was adapted into a film by Stanley Kubrick, the writer slowly begins to lose his marbles. Reports say the movie version will do away with the screenwriter profession of the main character, presumably being played by Kevin Bacon, and instead focus on telling the unsettling tale of a wealthy man with a younger wife and a 6-year-old child. Mistrust and suspicion characterize their marriage while they are in a remote location that may or may not be obeying all the physical laws of the universe. Spooky. And finally, Zach Penn, writer of such hit films as X-Men Days of Future Past, Avengers, and the upcoming Ready Player One, has just signed on with Paramount to develop a feature film treatment for the Hasbro toy ROM. According to Slash Film, ROM is a toy created in the late 70s that was then licensed to Marvel Comics, who gave the protagonist its own comic series. IDW Comics currently publishes a modern run of ROM comics. ROM, or Rom the Space Knight, is a cyborg who hails from the technologically advanced planet Galador. In the comics, Rom held off an invading race called the Dire Wraiths, shapeshifters who relied on dark magic to change their appearance. They fought their way across the universe and brought the battle to Earth. I'll be honest, it sounds like a bit of a stretch to get this into a proper movie form, but if anybody can do it, Penn probably can. Let's see how this turns out. And that'll do it for today's installment of the Movie News Feed. All right, and now you are all caught up to date with everything going on in the world of movie news. So now let's go to your emails. This is the main part of the show where you guys select the topics and the questions that we address here. How do you send in a topic or question to be on the John Campea Show? It's simple. Just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Make sure you put that word topic in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep those emails to 90 words or less. So, all right, let's get going with the first topic today. And the first topic today comes to us from Ryan Mikaelson, who writes, "Hey John, love the show and watch almost every day." Thank you so much, Ryan. "Looks like Clark Gregg is returning to the MCU and will be appearing in the Captain Marvel movie. Looks like they also started shooting the film. How big of a role do you think Agent Coulson will play in the new movie? Thanks, and bring on that filthy." Yeah, so big news came out yesterday. First of all, they announced that they have begun shooting the new Captain Marvel movie. So it is now in front of cameras. They're shooting the film. Everything's all going. But the other thing that they mentioned was the fact that a couple of familiar faces from the Marvel Cinematic Universe are making their return to the big screen. First of all, we got Clark Gregg, who I adore, as Agent Coulson coming back. Now, we've already known that Samuel L. Jackson is coming back as Nick Fury. It only makes sense, really, if S.H.I.E.L.D. is going to be a part of that Captain Marvel movie, that Phil Coulson would be there as well. So it's going to be set in the 90s, so it's going to be interesting to see if they age him up. But Clark Gregg kind of looks timeless, so you don't really need to do much to him to make him look a little bit younger. A couple of other interesting things. Some faces from Guardians of the Galaxy are returning. Lee Pace is coming back to reprise his role of Ronan the Accuser, which just makes sense when you understand the role of the Kree in this upcoming Captain Marvel movie. And his right-hand man, the Pursuer, played by Jaimon Hansu, who is just an incredible performer. I love watching him and everything. Who? If you're wondering who he is, he's the guy in Guardians when Star-Lord goes, "I'm Star-Lord," and he goes, "Who?" Jaimon Hansu. He's awesome, trust me. Amistad, if you haven't watched it. So this is great. Now look, I'm not a big fan of the TV show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Everybody knows that, and I get a lot of crap from you guys for the fact that I don't like it. However, the two things that I have always loved about that show. One is Clark Gregg as Coulson. When he's Coulson, I can watch it because he's great in the character. And he's so consistent with the character. The other is Ming-Na. It'd be interesting to see if maybe they find a way to sneak Ming-Na into this. I don't think they will, but that'll be interesting. So yeah, I think this is pretty cool stuff. I think this is really good news. Coulson's first appearance in an MCU movie since they killed him off in Avengers, so it's going to be interesting to see how they handle all this. All right, let's go on to topic number 2. And the next topic today comes to us from Vheto Gutieriez. I'm sure I'm butchering your name, man. Forgive me. Hello, John. Love the show. Thank you so much. Globally, Tomb Raider has made over $200 million. I made the math, and it looks like the film made its money back, budget plus marketing, minus 1/3 for the theater cut. With this result, how much more money does the film need to make for the studios to create a Tomb Raider sequel? I would love to hear your thoughts. Yeah, so Tomb Raider, the last I checked, it's in the $200 million range of how much is made at the box office. I don't know that it's quite broken even yet, but it's going to break even. The film will break even. I don't know if it's done so yet. Question becomes, how much more money do they need to make in order to kind of ensure a sequel? The answer to that, I think, is a whole bunch more. Because here's the thing. Where is the motivation for a studio to put out another Tomb Raider film when this one struggles just to break even? And while I like the film, and a number of other people I see, the general consensus on Tomb Raider seems to be, yeah, it's okay, which is great for a video game movie. To say, yeah, it's okay is great praise for a video game movie, apparently. But for the most part, the reaction has been, yeah, it's okay. Neither the financial struggle nor the, yeah, it's okay, because there's nothing there to tell a studio that, hey, if you put out another Tomb Raider, everybody loved the first one, so word of mouth will catch on, and even though the first one didn't make a ton of money, the second one will make more. As of right now, the studio would have no reason to suspect that a sequel would make any more money than the original. I mean, we're not seeing massive word of mouth. The fans aren't jumping up and down about it. The critics certainly aren't jumping up and down about it. It's barely going to break even on that one. So how much more money does it need to make? I'd say another $150 million, and I don't even think it's going to do that. So right now, look, anything is possible. Anything is possible, all right? They did a sequel for Pacific Rim, and so it got a sequel. Why not Tomb Raider? So it's possible. But if I had to bet $5 on it, not $100, but if I had to bet $5 on it, I would probably bet that we're probably not going to see that Tomb Raider sequel, which is unfortunate because I thought it was okay. All right, let's move on to the final emailed in topic today. And the final emailed in topic today comes to us from Darnesh Veepa, who writes, Ready Player One opens this week. So far, the word of mouth has been amazing. A friend of mine saw an advanced fan screening and said he liked it even more than Black Panther. My question is, Spielberg is obviously a master at every kind of filmmaking, but seems to have his biggest success with fantasy adventure like Ready Player One. Why do you think he hesitates then to direct a Star Wars, DC, or Marvel film? Seems like it would be right in his wheelhouse. All right, thanks a lot for the question, Darnesh. And yeah, I actually got to go see Ready Player One last night. I'm going to put up my review for Ready Player One in just a couple of hours here. I'm going to record it as soon as we're done the show. Jonathan's going to edit it, and we'll have it up and online probably somewhere around noonish is when the that review will go up. I'll just tell you this right now. I freaking loved it. I don't know if I liked it more than Black Panther, but I might have. I got to think about it a little bit more. It might be my favorite film of 2018 so far. But again, the review is coming a little bit later. I had a great time with it. Clearly, and I see what you're saying, man, Spielberg is a master at every kind of movie, but there's just something about him doing fantasy adventure that really takes it to the next level. So the question is, considering the response Ready Player One is and how good this movie is, and the fact that he just seems to really thrive in that type of environment, why haven't we seen the greatest filmmaker in history do something like straight up direct a Star Wars film, straight up direct a DC property, straight up direct a Marvel film? These films that seemed would be able to fit really well into his wheelhouse. I'm especially confused about his hesitation to do a Star Wars film, considering how close he is to George Lucas, how closely tied he is to Kathleen Kennedy. Him and Kathleen Kennedy have worked together for decades. He loves Kathleen Kennedy. So I've always been completely befuddled about why he hasn't done a Star Wars movie. So on that, I have no idea. I might have a guess as to why he's never done a DC film or a Marvel film. And I think that would be because of this. The DC films and the Marvel films are in very tightly contained cinematic universes. The Marvel one more so than DC, but still. And you can't let look, if you're Kevin Feige or you're Sujihara over on Warner Bros., you can't let a director, it doesn't matter how good the director is, just come in and do whatever they want with one of their movies, because it's going to have repercussions on the rest of your cinematic universe that you're going to have to bend and make fit. And you can't do that, unfortunately. I know it's the cool thing to say, just let the director do their vision. You got to think bigger than that. You have to think the whole cinematic universe. And you can't really let any director just come in and do whatever they want. And if you're Steven Spielberg, the greatest filmmaker of all time, in my opinion, do you walk into a situation like the MCU where somebody else who's not 1/10 the filmmaker that you are tell you what you can and cannot do with your movie? If you're Steven Spielberg, do you let some little tyke, even if that little tyke is the great Kevin Feige, do you let some little tyke come up to you and tell you what you can and can't do with your movie? Hell no, if you're Steven Spielberg. You're like, hey, listen, I don't know if you've heard, but I'm Steven Spielberg, and you're not. So how about you go sit in your corner and let me do my Steven Spielberg thing? Have you heard how many of my films have been nominated for Best Picture? Have you seen how many Oscars are on my mantle? Like, why would you do that if you're Steven Spielberg? I just couldn't see like a Spielberg or a Scorsese. The only reason I even think Scorsese got involved as a producer on that Joker film is because it is separate from the DCEU. So if you're a Christopher Nolan, or if you're a Steven Spielberg, or somebody of that stature right now, would you go into a situation where you're going to have really tight reins on you telling you what you can and cannot do? And it's understandable that those cinematic universes do that. They have to do that for the health of their cinematic universe. They can't think about just one film. They got to think about their universe as a whole. And I get that. So while I have no idea why we haven't seen Spielberg come and do a Star Wars film, that's probably my best guess about why we haven't seen him step up and do like a Marvel film or a DC film. But again, guys, watch for my Ready Player One review a little bit later. I'm super excited about it. All right. With all that stuff out of the way, guys, I've got some time now. I got about 10 minutes to take some of your live questions, and we're going to do that right now. You guys have already been sending in a bunch. And we start things off with Sam Fisher, who says, tell me I'm not the only one who wants CM to be superhero Top Gun. Okay, I'm guessing you're meaning Captain Marvel. Guys, don't use acronyms, please. Is this a good idea? Also, do you want to see Ming-Na as a young Agent May? I want to make sure, well, I'd be curious to see Agent May. I don't want to see just Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the movie, basically. As far as superhero Top Gun, I have no idea what you mean by that. Does that mean you want to see lots of action? Does that mean you want to see everybody playing topless volleyball? Does that mean you want to see jet fighter action? Does that mean you want, like, I don't know. You have to be more specific than that, Sam. Sorry about that, man. As far as Ming-Na goes, hey, I'd get a kick out of it if she's in there, but, I mean, I don't want them to just make it the cast of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in a Marvel movie, you know what I mean? Sam follows up with, if Lashana Lynch is playing Monica Rambeau. I want her to be Goose to Carol's Maverick. And maybe Don Cheadle play a young Rhodes to be Iceman. Yeah, again, I haven't heard anything about Don Cheadle or about anybody else. Again, that's one of the downsides of cinematic universe movies, is everybody wants to put everybody in every film. Oh, now let's put this person. Now let's put this person. Now let's put this. And every film just kind of becomes the same. You know what I'm saying? For those of you who don't know, Lashana Lynch just recently got cast because the woman who was originally supposed to be playing her had to back out at the last second because of scheduling conflicts. Sucks to be her. She was going to be starring in a Marvel film, and now she can't. That's terrible. Yang Kinirsch writes, hey, John, do you think Dark Phoenix is getting delayed so it can open in February is due to Deadpool and Black Panther's success opening that month? I don't know about that because they just had another X-Men universe film in New Mutants there and they just bumped it. Again, I'm not so worked up about that. I think they might have just delayed it because they really wanted to put Bohemian Rhapsody in that November slot. Honestly, the fact that they only moved it like 3 months, like less than 12 weeks, makes me suspect, and I don't know this, but makes me suspect that the main reason they moved the X-Men movie was just really because they wanted to put the Bohemian Rhapsody, for whatever reason they think Bohemian Rhapsody is going to work best in November. So they just nudged X-Men just a couple of months into the February date. And I'm sure being the February date, like I mentioned earlier, and the success they've had there with Deadpool makes them feel more comfortable with that date. So I'm sure that's probably part of it. Okay, let's move on. Sam writes, Rhodes is also United States Air Force. Yes, he is, but again, I don't want to see them just throwing in everybody into the film myself personally. Jordan Benjamin writes, hey, John, hope you're having a great day. I am so far. Thank you very much. What are your thoughts on the 2003 Hulk movie? Did you enjoy it? I personally still love it, prefer the MCU Hulk. I did enjoy it. It was a much deeper film that Ang Lee developed. It was really more of a character-driven film than the subsequent Hulk stuff that we've seen. It was very character-driven. You had Eric Bana playing the lead role. I thought he was great in it. You had Nick Nolte playing his father. Great father-son dynamic thing there. The movie, unfortunately, went off its rails. When he started getting into the Hulk dogs, and you had Phantom Nick Nolte, woo, I'm a phantom of the water. Like, it really went off the rails a little bit, unfortunately. So I liked it up to a point, but I do prefer the Ed Norton one, personally. And me being in it has nothing to do with that. Jordan Benjamin follows and writes, I can't quite enjoy the 2008 Hulk movie as much as the 2003 Hulk one. Ruffalo overall is the best Hulk. Does going from Norton to Ruffalo seem jarring? Nah, it didn't feel jarring at all. Like 2 seconds, I'm over it. That's why whenever people say like, you can't change actors, the audience will get confused. Really? Because we got over it in like 3 seconds. When they went from Norton to Ruffalo, 3 seconds, we just like, oh, he's Hulk now. Okay, he's Banner now. Continue. Like really, that's about the extent of it, I think. It's Mo writes, greetings from San Antonio. Hey, saw what you said of Love, Simon. You're right. Overall, it was a good film and saw it with a group of friends. Nice little film. Yeah, guys, seriously, if you feel like going out to the movies and you've already seen, Pacific Rim, you got that out of your system. You've already seen Black Panther a couple times, whatever. You saw Tomb Raider. You're looking for something to go check out. I do recommend going to check out Love, Simon. I think you'll like it. James B writes, hey, John, did you hear about X-Men Dark Phoenix being pushed back to 2019? James, you really ought to read the show notes or look at the title screen before putting in a super chat. But as we've already talked about, yes, I have heard about that. AFK 2010 writes, the tracking board today reported that Bohemian Rhapsody is moved up from the 25th of December to November 2nd. Is that a good sign for the movie? I don't know that it's a good sign. Whatever reason, they felt that Bohemian Rhapsody would probably get crushed on the Christmas. The Christmas release date is a highly sought after date. I'm thinking they felt Bohemian Rhapsody was going to get crushed. They needed to move it. They saw that they had a release date November 2nd, already being occupied by one of their other films, X-Men Dark Phoenix. So they figured we'll just move Dark Phoenix to February. Our comic book titles have worked great in February, and we'll move Bohemian Rhapsody up a little bit to November 2nd. So I don't think it's moving it off one of the single best movie release days of the year, Christmas Day, is not necessarily a good sign. Even though they moved it forward, it's not necessarily a good sign. To me, it tells me that they didn't think it could actually survive on that day because, you got some heavy competition. Patrick Conway writes, have you seen the Russo's Facebook cover? Yes. So, you know how there's the poster for Avengers Infinity War? You got every character on there except for Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye. Well, an artist did a rendition of that poster, but every single character in the poster is Hawkeye in a different pose. It looks amazing. And the Russo brothers took that and they made it the cover picture of their official Facebook page. You should go check it out if you get a chance. Anthony C. writes, have you ever had a weird fan encounter? Yes, at Comic-Con a number of years ago, a dude and his girlfriend came up to me. The dude, says, big fan. Yeah, nothing normal. We started talking for a minute, and basically, I've told the story before, but basically, he offered his girlfriend to me. I'm not going to go into any more details than that. You guys can take it from there. That was one of the strangest fan encounters I ever had. Let's see here. How far back do I need to go? Okay, there we go. Joe Rapazzo writes, hey, John, fun fight. Who wins, Barney the Dinosaur, Edward Norton, or Smoochie? Oh, probably Smoochie. But you know my answer is whoever writes it. Saw in advance, Preston writes, saw an advance screen of Isle of Dogs last night. Loved it. Had a packed house and applause at the end. Well done. I liked it. I liked Isle of Dogs. I didn't love it. I was expecting better from a Wes Anderson. I'm a big Wes Anderson fan, so I was expecting a little bit better. It seemed a little bit sluggish to me. There's a little bit pretentiousness to it as well. Like that really hipster pretentious, I won't hurt you song that they went back to a couple of times. It didn't work for me, but overall it's a nice film. I liked it. I really did. Don't take my criticism of it as if I didn't like it. I did like it. I've got my review for it. I give it a positive review. I wish I liked it more though. That's my only thing. Joe Rapazzo writes, also, what are your thoughts on a biopic about Richard Dawson's life and the creation of Family Feud? I'm not interested. I don't know anything about his life, so I don't know if there's an interesting story there to tell. I mean, just because somebody is a famous person doesn't mean there's necessarily an interesting story there to tell on the big screen. And maybe somebody who knows the life of Richard Dawson would scream at me, John, yes, there is. But I just don't know anything about the life of Richard Dawson. So my first reaction is, that doesn't really interest me. But maybe somebody could make me interested. Who Flung Poo writes, just watched the last open mic. Thanks for doing your best. Probably talking about the little guitar thing I did. Thank you so much, Who Flung Poo. Dim705 writes, do you think less China pandering would have made Uprising a better movie? Charlie Day speaking Mandarin was kind of brutal. No, I thought that had nothing to do with it. It made sense. Like if you're talking about the world needing to come together to build defenses against like interdimensional giant monsters, the two leads on it would probably be the United States and China. It would be odd if China wasn't a part of that. I thought what they were doing with Charlie Day and the thing, I thought that was pretty cool. I thought it was fun. So no, that had absolutely zero, less than zero, to do with the overall performance and the overall quality of the film. Less than zero. John Wiles writes, forget the Iron Spider. You ain't living down the awesome concert on yesterday's open mic. When does the tour start? Yeah, I probably won't be living that one down anytime soon. John follows up with, hope it's not a missed opportunity, but in Deadpool 2, Cable has to fall in a purple liquid or get hit with a purple powder for Deadpool to make a comment like, get this man a gold glove. That's a little too on the nose. See, here's the thing. I don't mind like a little joke here or there, but you can't make it too on the nose. If it makes it too on the nose, then it feels forced and it won't work. You know what I'm saying? So I hope it's nothing that blatant. It has to be something super subtle. For it to be funny, it's got to be super subtle. Otherwise, it's going to feel really forced and kind of like pandering, to be honest. So they got to be careful with that. Donnie Yasu writes, I rewatched Detroit again, and I have a friend who plays an extra in the movie. He appears during a suspect lineup, and it takes me out of the movie each time. Has anything like that happened to you? Oh, sure. Like when there's somebody like I personally know that's a friend of mine that's in a movie, when my friend pops up. Like, for instance, I've got this friend. Her name's Erin Cumming. And she's a great actress. And she was in that movie Bitch Slap. That's how I met her. A bunch of years ago, that movie Bitch Slap came out, which is so much fun. And I became good friends with two of the stars, Erin Cummings and Julia Voth. So much so that when I made my own little movie, both of them agreed to be in it. And Erin went on to be Spartacus's wife in Spartacus. She's amazing. She's done like 10 different TV shows, stuff like that. But it's funny because I'm in watching The Disaster Artist, right? With James Franco. And I'm watching the movie and blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, Erin pops up on screen. And I will admit, it totally pulls me out of the movie. Because I had no idea Erin was in the movie. But Anna and I turned to like, holy crap, it's Aaron. And like, I step outside of the theater, just text Aaron, you didn't tell me you're in the Disaster Artist. Anyway, so yes, that has happened to me, and it can pull you out of the film when it's somebody you actually know in it. It is a little distracting. It's Mo writes, on a side note, you're amazing and love your work. Thank you so much, It's Mo. I appreciate that. Really Tired 64 writes, do you still believe Infinity War will surpass Black Panther? Yes. Yeah, I do. I do. Especially, look, if Black Panther came in at like 1.6, 1.7 billion, maybe not. But it looks like it's going to top out around the 1.3 billion area. And that is a number I do think Avengers Infinity War will top. I think Avengers Infinity War will top that number. I don't necessarily think I don't think it'll catch a number of the other films in front of it, but I do think it'll catch Black Panther. Good old Uncle Sidious writes, if you could be one Marvel character for a day, who would it be? Magneto. Magneto's my favorite comic book character, period. Miles Pardo writes, still got the panic button, New Mutants. Yeah, no kidding, man. If I had the panic button, New Mutants is something worth pressing the panic button over at this point. Jovan Hudson just sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, Jovan. Bomb Squad writes, John Campea in villain in Spider-Man 2, Iron Spider, the Homecoming 2. Yeah, he gets out of the suit and it kind of becomes a Venom thing. Peter Parker goes, I'm too cool for this stupid Iron Man Jr. suits, and takes it off. But the Iron Man Jr. suit gets mad that he rejected him and becomes a villain and goes after him. Kind of like Venom. I could see that happening. Roshan Malapati writes, I think Infinity War will break Black Panther's worldwide box office. $2 billion? $2 billion's tough, man. Only 3 films in history have ever hit the $2 billion mark. So that might be a little bit too high of a bar, but it's possible. It is within the realm of possibility, absolutely. History Soup writes, pre-Scooby Natural question, Daphne or Velma? I'll go Velma, actually. I'll actually do that. Luna Comics writes, why don't we see 2D animated movies anymore? Because they don't draw. They wouldn't draw like CG does. CG is just now the standard. There's a lot more you can do with CG. On the one hand, there's a lot more you can do with it, visually speaking. And it's now just, that is the standard. That's what people expect to see now. So it would be a big financial risk to do a 2D one right now. Devontae Brown writes, Fox said New Mutants is adding a new character. Yeah, well, I've heard that before. Does it have to get pushed 1.5 years to add an extra character? Shamanth writes, hey, John, where can I see your movie, The Anniversary? Nowhere right now, but I am thinking about putting it up on YouTube. Trying to work out what I'm going to do with it right now. Good old Uncle Sidious writes, would you like to see a Never-Ending Story reboot? We kind of did, and it was called A Wrinkle in Time. I mean, think about it. A Wrinkle in Time is kind of a Never-Ending Story reboot, right? Think about that. James B. writes, sorry, John, got my movies mixed up. Movie news feed straightened me out. Oh, I see what you're talking about. Yeah, no problem, man. That happens. Who Flung Poo writes, I thought Harry lost his scar. WTF. Oh, I don't know enough about Harry Potter to adequately comment on that topic. Who Flung Poo writes, John, you have a Bacon score of 2. I expect more. Yeah, I don't have a direct connection to Kevin, unfortunately. And I love Kevin Bacon. SG Riffith 610 writes, but John, who would win in a fight? Someone who asks you who will win in a fight questions, or someone who asks you who should be cast in role? Bonus question, who would you cast for this fight? Why do all you guys just constantly feel the need to give me a hard time? I suppose I should expect at this point. Thanks so much for the question, SG. Aquaninos1193 writes, wouldn't pushing these Fox movies back create a mess for the Disney/Fox merger? These dates are only closer to the MCU's eventual attempt at mutants. Doesn't matter. You can't think that way. I've talked about this before. Right now, Fox and Disney have absolutely nothing to do with each other. And you don't know that this merger is ever actually going to happen. I mean, it looks like the AT&T and the Time Warner merger may not happen. The government may stop that. And if it does, then that may, add some negative precedent for the Warner Brothers or for the Disney and Fox merger as well. So if you're Fox, I've mentioned this before, you cannot even think about the Disney merger. You just have to go on business as usual. That's why Kevin Feige said the other day, we're not even thinking, Kevin says he's not even thinking about the Fox stuff, like at all. Until the deal is done, there's no point in even thinking about it. Just carry on business as usual. And if business as usual means we got to push this thing, then you push that thing. You can't even think about the merger at this point, because right now you don't even know if it's ever going to happen. Anthony R. writes, thanks, John, for humoring my Spider-Man Robin question yesterday. You're hilarious and you freaking rock. Well, thank you so much, Anthony. I appreciate it, man. And I love when we get questions like that, man. It's always awesome. It's always good to get questions from you, man. Brody Bradley, right? And I just got time for like 2 more here. Opinions on Training Day with Denzel Washington. Oh, it's a magnificent film. Love that movie. King Kong ain't got nothing on me. I love the movie. I think it's great. Bobby Virilis writes, were you in the How to Basic face reveal video? I don't even know what that is, so probably not. Okay, guys, that's all the time I've got for today for the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for joining me. Listen, guys, if you sent in a live question and it didn't get addressed, it'll either be in a companion video later, or I might just carry it over and use it in open mic a little bit later this afternoon. So don't worry, if you sent in a live question and I ran out of time to get to it, it will get answered a little bit later on today. Hey, listen, guys, do me a favor. If you enjoy watching the John Campea YouTube channel, head on over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. Get all the information about, hey, what is a Patreon supporter? Also, how does being a Patreon supporter keep this show on the air? And also, what benefits are there to being a Patreon supporter? Things like audio-only podcasts, the Facebook group, other things like that. And then maybe you'll want to be a Patreon supporter too. Also, guys, don't forget, follow me on Twitter, simply @John Campea. That's my handle there. That'll do it for me for now, guys. My name's John Campea. Thanks for joining me, and until the next video, bye-bye.